Hang on a minute. Right. Am I now live? Sorry. Right. Okay. It takes 60 seconds for someone to be able to say anything. Sorry about that if it looks like it was being late. So the problem was as follows. It's the first time I've streamed on YouTube for a few years. It's the first time I've streamed on YouTube on this channel, but I have done it on a previous channel before, but it's been a while. And so I thought I was broadcasting. I've just been talking to you. I have a little box on YouTube showing me. And I thought, I'm broadcasting. And my broadcast software says, you're broadcasting. But YouTube went, do you want to broadcast now? So I thought, oh, maybe I'm not broadcasting. I seem to be broadcasting now. Right, let's go through some things really quickly. Okay, if there's audio only in one ear, there's only one of me. Hopefully that'll sort itself out. Sorry about that. I'll have to try and note that down. So in terms of what we're going to be doing for this hour, it's really just an introduction. Do I ever get angry about politics? Yeah, I do. But not necessarily angry in the way some others do. I'm fairly even-tempered. But in terms of like changes that will be sort of coming to the channel, which is what this is like laying the groundwork for, and then we'll do other streams and we'll work out what the formats need to be, and I want to talk about that today as well. So first of all, I don't know whether it's my teaching experience, but I'm always hesitant to be in a sort of coasting state. You know, when you're a teacher, you're told, obviously, you know, there's a lot of focus on students who may be behind, but there's also a lot of focus on students that are called coasting, which means they're doing fine. They're all doing grand. And it's, is it perspective or hands way larger head? It's because I'm on a webcam here, so, and I'm quite close to the webcam, as you would be with a webcam. But yeah, it's, so the worry is, even with the channel, I just think if I keep doing the same thing in the same way, is that really the right thing to do? And I got a bit of a jolt a couple of months ago because everything was doing really well, very consistent on the channel with views, then suddenly they go down. I know why they've gone down. That's because the Ukraine crisis is obviously the big story. I don't do a lot on it, therefore that happens. That's understandable. But it does get me thinking, so, but just because the way I do things in the channel, is it, because I know that regardless of whatever else happens in the world, things are going to change and you have to adapt. You always have to adapt. So two major changes. I'm changing the schedule. I'll show you really quickly why that is. Because at the moment it's 6 a.m. and 12 noon. And YouTube very helpfully said, don't do that. Because you can sort of see at 6 a.m. This is not YouTube viewers in general. This is my viewers specifically. And I put them out at 6 a.m. and 12 noon. And it's a density-based thing, obviously, as you can understand. So when it's very pale, hardly any buggers actually viewing my stuff. When it's, I don't actually know what that message is. Try and be careful what you post as well, because if it says, if the YouTube algorithm doesn't quite like it, I may not have time to go through it. And then where it's, you know, quite dark, that means there's loads there. So obviously you look at this and you think, well, 12 noon and 5 p.m. is probably better. And that's what YouTube says. So that's why I'm going to be doing that one. Now, in terms of the live stream, and in terms of the live stream, so I have been doing live streams via Patreon before. It's not ideal, to be honest. I don't have tools on live streams. Like, for example, I can't use things like this. I can't, you know, bring up things off websites via Patreon. I used to be able to, can't anymore. So I'm missing the I'm missing the tools to be able to do things. Now, I've not got that much prepared here because this is just a general track. So I need mods, right? Okay, we'll cover that one first. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. So the way it works on Patreon is I've been streaming on Patreon for a while. I'm doing another stream on Patreon tomorrow. There's two tiers of membership on Patreon. For one of them, the lower one, well, one of the lower ones, I do a stream each month. For the others, I do several streams each month, always on the same day. I'll be doing something similar with the memberships. But where YouTube is good is I can do something a little bit more. So the audio is mono. I don't know what to do about that at the moment. I've made a note. I'll see if I can do anything. I'm not using OBS Studio at all. But I'll look at things later on. I don't think mono at the moment is the worst thing. There's only me talking. And I'm not going to be playing any silly sound effects. But the... what was I now? Yeah, so the way I'm imagining it is there'll be like 3 types of stream. Okay? There'll be one type of stream that is basically for... There's going to be like 2 tiers of members to begin with. And there'll be a stream each week for... Or several streams a week. It depends. Usually it'll be a stream each week for the second tier of member. There'll be another stream each week which anyone can tune into, but only members of either tier can type in the chat. Now that removes the problem of trolls, because I haven't had a problem with trolls on Patreon. That should deal with it here as well. So that's what I'm thinking. Now what I will also do is once a month, I'm thinking, have one that is fully public, a completely public stream, for which maybe I will need mods, or maybe we just put up with it for once a month. And that will be used as I was thinking, as a fundraiser. So we pick whatever seems to be a topical charity of that time of the month. And, oh, my channel's got a time of the month. And then we use that to generate funds for that cause. That's what I'm thinking in terms of. Obviously, people put ideas in as to what they think about that, but that's what I'll be thinking. So, but in general terms as well, in terms of what we want the format to be here, again, I'm in 2 minds. On Patreon, what I do is I just open the stream and we just talk about whatever topics people want to bring to the table, which sometimes means going from one topic to another. Or do we do it a little bit more like Max Robespierre does, where you've got a selection of topics and you cover one and then cover another and cover another, and he picks out comments from the chat that are focused on that topic, so it sort of flows more. I don't know. I don't actually mind which one, but there it is. So you'll subscribe to troll me. Now, again, when I say I've had no problem with trolls on Patreon, I have had a couple of trolls. Well, I may have had several, but I mean, in terms of the streams, I just do without it. Do you know what I mean? The memberships on this will not make me as much as they do on Patreon unless there are loads more members, because YouTube takes a way bigger cut than Patreon. The idea of moving this to here is, yes, there's some revenue generation from it, but it's because there's better tools. I just got, and I regret having ever done the Patreon thing. The reason was, when I started live streaming on Patreon, I couldn't do this here, or at least not with memberships. I could have done it publicly, and then people would have been saying you need moderators, and it's like, because another thing, some people may wonder, well, why do I seem hesitant about using moderators? I think part of it is I have a bit of an opinion. A trait in terms of, when I have a problem, I try and solve it myself. I'm a bit of a bugger for that, and I've been like that for basically all of my adult life. When I have a problem, I sort it out myself. So my mind naturally thinks of what are the solutions that I can apply, but also, really, as I say, all I'm really doing here is trying to switch the model I use for live streaming from Patreon, where it's behind a paywall, to here. So it's still going to be the same thing. We're just going to have a couple of streams while we sort this out. Maybe I could do an evil Tory Phil version like Max does. I'm not an actor. This is the problem. Beyond doing the occasional silly voice, I'm not an actor. But it is what it is. If I don't have mods, it might be a good idea to put up the minimum subscription time needed people to chat. Yes, that's a good point, John. Because, so I'll tell you what I've tried at the moment. So first of all, to comment in here, you have to be a subscriber. You have to have subscribed for 5 minutes. Maybe I do need to put that up. Bear in mind, there are trolls who are also subscribers. But yes, I may need to fiddle with some of the things. Vote on the topics for discussion on the channel. Yes, that's another possibility. So again, it depends. Do we have a free-for-all political discussion? Do we have a particular topic? I'll tell you the downside. The pros and cons of having a specific topic, or maybe a couple of topics, or 3 topics even, is the advantage of it is you can say, right, 20 minutes on this topic, 20 on that, 20 on that, and it follows. And if anyone was watching it back later, it's not jumping from topic to topic to topic. The downside to it is sometimes someone will say something in the chat that I really want to reply to that's not related. And I'll be going, I want to talk about it, but I must be disciplined. So it's whether I have the discipline to do that. Hang on, I'm going to show this one. Louis is saying, please subscribe so I can buy newer clothing. These are new. All right? These are brand new. Just because clothes don't fit me. All right? I don't care because I like to be comfortable. I had to care a little bit more. Okay, there's a weird thing now where YouTube or the algorithm is hiding some comments, and I really don't know why. Oh no, I can see why on that one. All right, let's not do that one. I've now just read the comment. Hopefully I've just removed the comment. Yes, it's just the comment, not the person. I should have more faith in the algorithm there. But anyway, and that's sort of roughly it. How do I keep being so positive? So much confrontation with malicious and dishonest people makes me sad sometimes. It's just a mindset that I just feel is necessary. Like, you'll sometimes see people saying, they hate Tories, or they hate this people, or hate that people. And I think, no, I don't ever wish to get into that thing. Basically, I need to see political opponents as people who just currently disagree with me. There are some people who are, I think, lost causes. I think some people are actually wicked, sometimes even evil. But a lot of people are just misguided. Like, if you have this very divisive them and us situation, do you know what? If you're an opponent of the Conservatives, you'll be on the losing side. Because they have everything in their favour. They will always have massive amounts of money. The only time I can remember the Conservatives being hard up for money was in the last days of Theresa May, because the donors turned off the tap because she wasn't doing what they wanted. And then what did the Conservative Party do? They changed their leader. They did what the donors wanted them to do. And of course, there's the mainstream media on their side as well. So I really just have the attitude. First of all, you need to stay positive about things. I describe myself as an optimistic cynic. That means I think the world is in a terrible place, but it will get better. Granted, it is currently getting worse, but at some point later on it will get better. Do I think Boris is gaining points from the war? Not. I think it has steadied the ship, yes. It has provided a distraction, but it is not enough of a distraction. For example, the Conservatives had another little... They went up in the polls last week. They've gone down again after the Partygate fines this week. So it has steadied the ship for him. It stopped the poll rating going below 30%, which it might well have done otherwise. It certainly helped get... There's a load of Tory MPs who were gunning for him, who've now decided now is not the time because of bullshit. But it's... So it's definitely helped him. It has helped him. It's distressing to say that it's helped him, but it's not like the Falklands for Thatcher. Although it's helping him, it's not going to save him. Because apart from anything else, we're not directly involved. We're not. We're providing useful help. But anyway. Gordon Bennett, where are we now? I shudder to think how this is even going to be there. The banality of evil. Do I have any thoughts on the upcoming Northern Ireland Assembly election? Well, the thing is, no, because it seems to be too tight. Like, I noticed Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, who's the leader of the DUP at the moment, who is now trying to urge people where it will help to vote for other unionist parties to stop Sinn Féin getting that majority. So at the moment, the DUP... I mean, it's one of two things, isn't it? The DUP could still be the largest party in Northern Ireland after the elections, because although the polling has suggested, that Sinn Féin may become the largest, there might be an awful lot of people who decide when it comes down, because this is what politics is ultimately. An election is not a choice of what you want. It's never a choice of what you want. It's of what you least oppose. And it might well be. I feel sorry for a lot of, we've got plenty of it here, but you look at people in Northern Ireland, moderate people in Northern Ireland, thinking, well, bloody hell, DUP, Sinn Féin, what the hell? And you can vote for some bugger else, but a lot of the time it's like, it's the DUP or Sinn Féin that's going to be occupying the First Minister post and the Deputy First Minister post. Except if the DUP become the second largest party, they'll not take up their places and Stormont will stay in mothballs. If Sinn Féin end up being second place, they probably won't do the same, but they have done in the past. Who knows? So it's curious as to see what would happen. It's also curious to see these stories about whether Boris Johnson is under pressure to trigger, well, what he calls trigger Article 16. What he actually means is suspend parts of the protocol. If the DUP remain the largest party, because it turns out that a lot of people hate Sinn Féin more than the DUP, because that's what first past, well, it's not really first past the post in the truest sense, but when you have got two party politics of a sort like this, it becomes, who do you hate the least? And if it's the DUP that end up still being the largest party, that puts more pressure on Boris Johnson because they'll then say, oh, this was like a referendum on the protocol, and so we need the protocol dropping, which is bollocks, but that's what they'll say. If you've got if Sinn Féin win, then Stormont basically is not going to assemble, is it? Either way, it's just incredibly, after May the 5th, it's just going to be quite a tricky time for Northern Ireland for the rest of this year. Do I think Elon Musk bid to take over Twitter is a positive thing for free speech? I really can't. I don't know. At the end of the day, you think to yourself, do I want someone like Elon Musk in charge of a large social media platform? No, I don't. At the same time, who is in charge of a large media platform? Rich oil sheiks. I mean, it doesn't really matter, is it? It's just billionaires who live in a fantasy world who are controlling Twitter, whatever happens. I really don't know who would be better. Do you know what? There was a brilliant phrase on... someone was interviewed on a television program. I only saw a clip of it. And this man was saying just what a disaster Boris Johnson is as Prime Minister, and he should be replaced, he should be removed. And the presenter asked him, who would you choose to be better out of the Conservative Party? And this fella responded, it's a bit like being asked what's your favourite flavour of animal poo. And it's sort of the same thing, isn't it? When you're asked what's the better alternative here, and it's like all of them are terrible. Proportional representation, the only way out of this, adding citizens' assembly, you can actually get a form of real democracy. Yes, the difficulty, of course, is you have to. Proportional representation is my top political priority right now. If you were to write a list of political policies that I think are very important, for me, top of the list is proportional representation, because without, or at least because single transferable votes for me is a compromise. I don't think it's great, but it's better than first past the post. But for me, when you've got first past the post, the next Labour government can do nothing. Even if it had a big majority, which it's not going to get a majority at all as far as I can see. It can't do anything. Like when people, and I try to explain to people, when people say, oh, if Jeremy Corbyn had become Prime Minister, he'd have done this, this, this and this. And it's like, no, he wouldn't. He'd have started it, and then he'd have been straight out of power. The Conservatives would have come in and they'd trash it all again. You've got to ask yourself, how do you stop another government wrecking what you're trying to build? And will take a generation to build. Things like fixing criminal justice, the NHS, education, all of these things. Even if a progressive government knew exactly what to do about it and they were focused. They'd done all the research and they knew exactly what to do, and that's not the case. But let's say it would take them 20 years at least to get it in place. They're not going to be in power for 20 years. Not with first past the post. So you need a system that prevents a government, an extreme wing of politics, either wing of politics, having complete control over politics. And proportional representation, I'm not saying it's perfect. Yes, you get shitty governments with proportional representation as well. But for me, it just is it massively reduces the chances of a very, very narrow section of politics achieving 100% of the power. With proportional representation, we could not have had the government that would have introduced Brexit, that would have sent people off to Rwanda, to like deporting people, transporting people, you know, or just sell off public services all the time. Never get away with it. There'd never be a majority of Parliament in favour of that, because it would be impossible for the Conservatives to win an outright majority on their own. And if they could, the only way the Conservative Party could ever get over 50% of the vote is by presenting a very moderate manifesto that appeals to the centre. So the idea of a Conservative Party with a very far right manifesto achieving that, never happening. Never in your life. But anyway, right, next one. Is Putin's reaction to Johnson banning him going to do Boris good, or is it dangerous considering Putin's follow-up warning of consequences? It's not going to do, it's not, yeah, it may do Johnson some good, because again, it feeds into this narrative that Putin, you know, that Boris Johnson's actually leading the effort. That's why Putin's focusing on Johnson. You know, it's like, it's a bit like, so that he can say, look, you know, I'm leading. Oh yeah, these people that say I'm not really leading. So why has Putin banned me then? I notice he hasn't banned Macron, hasn't he? He hasn't banned Schultz, has he? You know, why has he banned me then, eh? That is what it's about. Quite how much capital he'll get from it, I don't know, because I don't think it's sort of news that's really going to feed through. I can't think it's the sort of thing that the Sunday papers are going to stick on their front pages tomorrow. Because I don't think, even for someone like the Sunday Express or the Daily Express that wants to really back Johnson up, I don't think they can be asked to stick that on their front page. Do I think the problem with centre-right parties is the watered-down version of far-right parties? No. If you have a far-right party, there's no need for centre-right parties to adopt their rhetoric, is there? You know, or, I mean, sometimes you might have a little hint just for a campaign. So, for example, Macron, before the first run, had to talk about immigration, you know, because he's trying to cut some of the rug from under Le Pen. And that's another thing that pissed me off. I'm going to have to keep saying this as well. Could not believe, when I saw the results, I looked at it and you thought, wow, if only, because what happened was, right, all right, Marine Le Pen was expected to get through to the second round and did. Forget the fella's name, but the left-wing candidate was so close behind. And then you look at it and you think, hang on a minute, there were 3 other left-wing candidates who did so badly they're actually bankrupting themselves. Why didn't they just get behind one candidate? Why didn't they see that they were not in pole position to get through to the second round and just get behind one candidate? And then it'd have been a runoff between Macron and a left-wing candidate, wouldn't it? And we wouldn't have to be dealing with all this crap. None of it. Anyway, never mind. Oh, hi, Max. If I could give the Labour Party one piece of advice, what would it be? To listen to me. No, I'm not kidding. The thing is, I don't know, because I don't know on what they are basing some of their decisions. Like, some of their decisions, I can see the logic in it, but I also have to assume certain things. So, for example, their position on Brexit, I can totally see the logic in it. Because remember, like, all I can see is polling, national polling. That's totally worthless. Labour know full well they can only target so many seats at the next election, right? in those seats. So anyone outside of those seats, forget it. Don't matter what their opinion of Brexit is. Makes no difference. You know, if you've got a very pro-Remain, it's probably not the right word to use now, or anti-Brexit area, but it's not one of your target seats, do you know what? An anti-Brexit stance ain't going to help you. So you've got certain target seats. Within those target seats, you've got some people who will just vote for you anyway. They will vote for whoever is. You could shave a chimp and put a right colour rosette on it and it's going to vote for you. There'll be other people who will never vote for you, ever. Don't matter who the leader is. Doesn't matter. It's the voters who are prepared to listen to you and decide. It's the ones who might vote for you. So the ones who might vote for you in the seats that you might flip. Those are the only people that matter. I can't see polls to what those people think. Labour can. Labour can commission polls that say, that's, you know, what do these people think? So whenever I look at Labour's policies, and it doesn't matter, it's not always on Brexit, it could be on other things as well, but let's say Brexit. Whenever I look at them, I can see the logic in their stance if it's backed up by very specific polls that they are commissioning. If, however, there's some emotion involved in their decision making, that's more worrying. But because I don't know, I'm not obviously privy to their strategy meetings, because I do not know exactly what they are basing certain decisions on, I can't be absolutely certain what my advice would be. So if I was to give them one piece of advice that I think would definitely be good, it would be this. Whenever they do leafleting campaigns, on their leaflets, hang on, I've got one, right. On their leaflets, so this is obviously the Keir Starmer pledges. I'm not suggesting they do put this isn't a leaflet, it's a booklet, but don't have a leaflet that has that on it, right? Because people pick it up from the mat and they walk over to the kitchen and they put it in the bin. So what I would do is just to have, and I've said this before, you just have a chart, some graphical illustration, nice and easy, with a big old heading that you can't miss, that basically says, the Tories are crap, Labour are great. Okay? Something like that. It could be a chart that shows how much spending on the NHS under Labour and how much has been under the Conservatives, some in real terms. Some graphic. So just imagine someone picking this thing up the mat. They're not deliberately reading it, but they'll catch an image and a short, large amount of text, like large lettered text. As they walk it to the bin, do they take that message in? If the answer is yes, that's the leaflet. If it's no, you're wasting your time. No one reads them. But anyway. Gordon Brown, worst ever boom and bust, but he didn't resign after bankrupting the UK. Well, he didn't bankrupt the UK though, did he? It is absolutely true to say that he is the Chancellor who said no more boom and bust, and you're quite right, it was a hell of a bust. You know, there was a boom and there was a bust, so that was rubbish. But at the same time, the financial management up until the Tories came back in was absolutely spot on, because you can see, if you look at how the UK national debt went up, it mirrored Germany's. Now here's the thing, you watch what happens after about 2011 when the Tory policies started coming online, we started to diverge. Germany got their national debt as a proportion of GDP back down to where it was pre-crash. Ours just kept going up. So it was actually, Labour made the right calls, you know. But anyway, doesn't matter. But it, obviously what it did, because Labour were very bad at explaining that was the problem. That was ultimately the problem of Gordon Brown and Ed Miliband. They were very bad at explaining it. So they allowed the Conservatives to implement austerity and then blame it on Labour. They got to blame Labour for their policies. And this is why, you know, and there might be a question here. Do I think Starmer should openly back rejoining the single market? Well, again, it comes down to that polling. If their polling of key voters in key constituencies says no, then no. I said from the start, you know, even when I thought that Starmer would attack Brexit more robustly, I still said from the start, I do not want Starmer to back any policy that doesn't matter if it's a really good policy, it could be the best policy ever, like proportional representation. Do not back any policy that risks losing you a net number of votes in key constituencies. You know, you focus on because they'll have loads of policies, but be explicit about the ones that get your votes, not the ones that might lose your votes, even if it's a risk. And you know, how do we entice no voters to participate in a general election? That's a good question. And to be honest, and this is, I'll tell you, this is the bugger of it. So if we take, say, young people, for example, they'd be a really powerful voting bloc. Because first past the post as well, one of the real problems with first past the post, it's not just that it's not representative of the public because it's a winner takes all. It's the fact that in a first past the post system, there are winners and losers amongst the electorate, and the losers become disenfranchised and they don't vote. And then you end up with it being even less representative. So, you know, just a little drink. I don't know, but the bugger of it is, it's not worth spending the resources on it. You know, the best idea I could have for how Labour could enthuse more young people to go out and vote would be, as myself and others, including Max, have been trying to urge them, use social media. You know, Graham Hughes, who many of you will know, is actually doing very well. He's trying to get through to Labour. He's got through to trying to explain to them that, you know, they should be expanding their social media presence. And do you know what they said to him? One of the things they said to him, why they're not on YouTube, because they only want to appeal to older voters. It's like, well, okay, yes, put most of your resources obviously into larger voting blocks, absolutely. What? Like the older voters, let me see if I can find it. Let me see. I want analytics. Let's see if I can put this up here. Right. Oh, it won't go that far up. But we can. Basically, most of my viewers are older viewers. You know, over a quarter of all my viewers are over the age of 65. You know, and basically about 3/4 are 45 or older. Like, vast majority are older than me. But anyway, there we go. So, and the other thing to try and say is, yes, the Labour Party, let's face facts, is financially knackered. Yes, it can't afford to spend a load of things like this, but it's self-funding. Like myself, Max, you know, the various people who can make politics on social media earn us a living. And you just think, what? So the Labour Party, right, wouldn't even take that long to build up. They've got a ready-made audience. They're a huge party. If they were to launch, I mean, they've got a YouTube channel, but it's crap. If they were to launch decent content on it, engaging content, they'd have their membership, the views would go all out of proportion, as long as they kept it up, and it would pay for itself. They could employ 2 people to do YouTube, and initial investment, yes, but after that, it'd be paying for their own wages. 2 people to deal with Facebook, 2 people for Twitter, 2 people for this, 2 people for that. You know, and some of them are easier to monetize than others. YouTube is very easy to monetize, but you know, you can make it self-funding. There's no excuse for Labour not being on all of these platforms and engaging everyone on a zero cost basis, or very low cost basis if it takes a year or 2 to get up to the point where it pays for itself. How much would it really cost Labour to run a YouTube channel? Again, not next to nothing. I think someone did suggest, I can't remember who it was now, are they worried, might have even been Max, can't remember, but are they worried potentially about losing control? Because if you employ 2 staff to run your YouTube stuff, right, it's official Labour, isn't it? So then it's like, so then you've got to get the 2 people you can trust not to undermine anything the leadership might be saying, because that would be embarrassing. I understand that, and maybe there's some reticence there, but at the same time, you've got to solve it. You've got to solve that problem, because they're cutting themselves off from not only, because although I can understand you don't spend a lot of resources trying to engage young people with a campaign because they just don't vote in large numbers, and if you need to focus on the larger voting blocks, particularly the elderly. You've got to. But if you can just engage a few, you know, it can make the difference. In tight seats, it can make the difference. I was looking, right, I can't remember where oh no, I'm not going to be able to find it now, am I? There was a particular seat I was looking at. Hang on, let me see if I can find it now. I bet I can't. I've seen a similar one for the Lib Dems. Let me try and find. If the green screen, by the way, for months is going to be like this because I'm in the conservatory. I'm reliant. I can't control the light in here. Hopefully towards the end of summer. Right, here we go. So this seat down here. So this is basically the latest prediction for how, if you know, if there were a general election tomorrow type of thing. Obviously there isn't. A campaign changes everything. This is how it would look. It looks bloody good, actually. I don't expect it to be this good. It would end up with Labour on 306 seats. You know, in theory, they could form an alliance with the Lib Dems alone. In reality, they can't. They'll still need the SNP. But look at this seat here. You probably can't see it too easily. It has the Conservatives holding it, but they would get 39% of the vote. Lib Dems on 37.7%. Now, there are similar things with Labour, but I was looking at one earlier and I've forgotten which one it is. So I'll not try and find it now. But you can imagine a similar seat with Labour and you just think to yourself, so it's saying that the Conservatives will hold this. Oh, I remember what it is. It was bloody Grimsby. That was it. So, hold on. I remember now. So this is where I used to live, Scunthorpe going back to the Conservatives. But Grimsby, where I also used to live, Conservatives hold, but 41. Obviously, this isn't going to be totally accurate. You know, it's a poll prediction. But 41.4% to Labour's 41. You think to yourself, there's not much in that. There isn't much in that. Now, you can imagine if Labour had gone big on social media, they wouldn't necessarily, you know, I don't know what that would translate at. You might only need a few hundred more votes for Labour, maybe only 100 more votes for Labour. Imagine, like, 100 teenagers, 18, 19-year-olds that you've enthused, turning up to vote where they wouldn't ordinarily. Could make the difference in a tight seat like that. You're sat in Great Grimsby. Is it cold? I lived in Grimsby for quite a long time. Over 10 years, just over 10 years, I think it was. Okay, there's another comment about trolls. Again, my attitude with the troll, again, at some point, it'll only be members mostly doing this anyway. Just try and ignore the trolls because I can't read that. But yeah, who put... don't spell things wrong to distract the... Oh, my screen's gone. There it is. But yeah, it's... you know, even though this would be a good result... Labour, I don't think Labour are going to get 306 at all. Can't see it. Would I prefer Labour in a majority or a hung parliament with Labour, Lib Dems, SNP? I would still prefer Labour majority. I'll tell you why. I can see the appeal in Labour with the Lib Dems because, as I've said before, Labour at the moment are adopting a position of no to rejoin the single market, but read between the lines, the Lib Dems are saying no, we want to rejoin the single market. If Labour do not get a majority, if Labour do finish on 306 seats, and the Lib Dems and the SNP go, oh, you'd like to work with us, would you? Oh, you'd like our help getting through some legislation? Yeah, no problem, mate, no problem. How about rejoining the single market, eh? How about that as a policy? You know, so there's an awful... Just because Labour say no to a thing doesn't mean that. Do remember, like in 2015, David Cameron only agreed to put the Brexit referendum on the manifesto because he didn't think he'd have to follow through on it, because he thought there would be another hung parliament, he'd need the Lib Dems would say no, problem gone away. He got to back down to his backbenchers because he's a craven coward, and he didn't think he'd have to go ahead with it. And then it went wrong because he won a bloody majority, didn't he? He must be the first Conservative leader in history to have been disappointed that he won a majority. But it's, you know, it's so that I can absolutely see the benefit for people in thinking, would it be better? Because it's almost like, you know, and I'm wanting proportional representation, and I know full well what that means. With proportional representation in this country, it means two things. It first of all, Labour splits in two. not two equal parts, but it splits in two. The hard left go and join the Socialist Workers' Party, and then they get some MPs in Parliament and they're happy. But it also means Labour technically will get smaller, don't get as many MPs. They will have to work with other parties in government. That's fine. I will take a Labour alliance in government most of the time over a Labour opposition most of the time. Any day of the week. But at the same time, I also think there might be too much horse trading. Because I'll tell you what worries me about the alliance to come. It won't be a strong alliance. Like, if it were the case, you know, Labour win 306 MPs, the Lib Dems win 40, you'd think that can be a basis of a strongish alliance, and they can get stuff done. The Conservatives and their media will 100%, when in the next Parliament, if that's how it pans out, will 100% say this government's getting nothing done. The reason it's getting nothing done is because they're arguing amongst each other. What you need is a single party in charge. The Conservatives are the only party that can form a majority government. In fact, that will be one of their main strategies going into the next election, I bet. And that's what they'll push. They'll say that going to the election. Let's say they lose. They'll carry on saying it all through the next Parliament. The reason things aren't getting any better is because we've got a weak coalition or alliance government. I'll plug that all the way through. And my worry is that the Conservatives win the following election. So that's why I would still, on balance, prefer a majority Labour government, because it will be able to get things done rapidly. It will be able to say after 100 days, we've done this. The problem with the way it's likely to pan out is there's going to be arguments. Like Labour, and not so much Labour and the Lib Dems, because Labour and the Lib Dems are already talking to each other about policies. So it's not like they're waiting and then going to discuss policies when they're trying to sort power out. They're talking right now. I don't know how many people know that. They are. There's reports that they're talking behind the scenes, not just about cooperating, but in elections, but cooperating in government. Missing from that conversation is obviously the SNP. Here's the difficulty. Labour cannot say that they would work with the SNP because Conservatives, which basically now, as anyone can see, is basically an English nationalist party now, they will push the fear of people in England that you end up with a Scottish nationalist party in charge as opposed to an English nationalist party, which I don't know why that's suddenly better. So they've been pushing that since 2015. So Labour have to make sure they say no, but at the same time, the parliamentary arithmetic's going to mean yeah. But what it also means is they can't really talk about it. I'm just this green screen's going to annoy me now. It also means they can't really talk about it in too much. They can't really talk directly with the SNP. They can't have talks until afterwards. So yeah, I just worry it's going to be a little bit. Do I think we need a female Labour Prime Minister? I don't really do the identity politics thing. There have been female leaders that would have been really good. I, for example, voted for Yvette Cooper when she was standing, and then we would have had a female Labour Prime Minister. C'est la vie. At the end of the day, I'll always pick what I think is the best at the moment. If you look at the candidates that were on offer last time round, it was Keir Starmer, Lisa Nandy and Rebecca Long-Bailey. Rebecca Long-Bailey, worse than useless. Absolutely worse than useless. Lisa Nandy, maybe for the future. My issue with her is I don't think she had enough support amongst MPs. What we needed was a leader who could get MPs on their side. And Starmer had a lot of support amongst MPs. Nandy had some, not quite enough. And I thought Emily Thornberry was in the leadership run for a little while. I think she's a brilliant minister, and she's been absolutely spectacular at hammering the government on Brexit. But she's also a bit divisive. Like, she's a little bit like Angela Rayner. For all their brilliance, they're like they far too often use phrases like "Do you want to fight about it?" type thing. They're quite, yeah, they lack subtlety sometimes. Not that I think Keir Starmer's a brilliant choice either. As I say, I've worried from the start about his charisma. It's just like, the best thing going for him is the fact that people can't hate him. You know, when you haven't got a strong personality, you might not enthuse a load of people, but at least people can't hate you. There's nothing to hate. Rebecca Long Bailey is my MP. She's never around and very rarely answers anyone back. Well, that's an interesting thing you say there. I knew some people in my local constituency party when I lived in Scunthorpe who went to like the hustings, and they listened to Keir Starmer, Lisa Nandy. I think Emily Thornberry was still there at the time as well, and Rebecca Long Bailey. And they went, because they were Corbynites, they went there expecting to back Rebecca Long Bailey, and they came back saying, do you know what, she's a bloody robot. What they said is, whenever anyone else was talking, she just stared into space. And whenever anyone asked her a question, it's like the lights were on but no one was at home. She just had a pre-prepared stuff. Whereas they said Keir Starmer listened to people. He actually listened to the question and answered it. But there it is. But yeah, so it would be lovely to have a Labour leader that had many of Starmer's qualities, because the thing is, he has actually made a lot of changes to the party. But that all goes on under the bonnet and people don't necessarily notice it. But it's but he has done a lot. But it's just, yeah, it'd be nice to have someone who'd have that real fiery oratory about them. But you know, you can't like fabricate that. If it's not who it is, it's not who he is. And it's not like there was an obvious person that did have that as well as the other qualities. There wasn't. Like, who is there in the Labour Party that has that? You'd say Angela Rayner's quite good with a fiery oratory, but she also puts her foot in it as well. And, you know, why is Rishi Sunak not getting arrested for holding his green card? Well, I mean, that would be breaking American law. They don't seem that bothered about it, if I'm honest. You know, as I say, the White House spokesperson didn't seem to want to answer the questions on it, which I mean, it's guessing that Biden's not that arsed about it either. But anyway. He's bankrupted the party, great changes. He hasn't though, has he? That was Corbyn. You know, two ways. First of all, human rights abuses, so a load of people sued the Labour Party, which have to be paid. Second of all, I remember the very last 2019 Labour Party conference, and one of his shadow ministers, and I forget who it was, I'm afraid, said, we don't increase the spending during the campaign. I thought, what? What's the point of keeping your money? And then they said, we're always on a campaign footing. At that point, I just thought, that's it. All hope is lost. Because what you normally expect when you go into a campaign, you appeal to more people because you're able to spend more money and your campaign gets out there. Here's me, September 2019, Labour are nowhere in the polls. And I'm thinking to myself, this is you spending a campaign, throwing money around on a campaign level of spending all the time. That's why Labour are knackered. Because they just threw the money away. It was bad enough for any leader. Labour had to fight a general election in 2015, 2017 and 2019. That's 3 general elections in 4.5 years. They haven't got the money to do that. Conservatives have the money to do that. Labour don't. But to have thrown all that away. But anyway. Surely Labour should be able to take advantage of Starmer's lack of charisma. The public is sick of politics, boring and good. Well, that is certainly one of their angles, isn't it? That people are ready for a serious Prime Minister. You know, that, yes, they will attempt. Obviously, you know, Labour will have PR strategists just like any other party, and Labour will have done in the past. And what they'll do is they won't try and make Starmer something he's not, because that's foolish. You can't do that. What they will attempt to do, of course, is to play to his strengths. You know, he is the solid, dependable type. Push that. At the end of the day, that's quite a good comparison with Boris Johnson anyway. Boris Johnson, the clown, we're sick of clowns. The clown's getting us nowhere. He's costing us a fortune. He's destroying our credibility on the world stage and all the rest of it. So, yeah. Emotions are overrated as a human trait. Usually emotions are reaction, not an intended action. Yes. And the best players of it are not really emotional anyway. They just pretend to be, like Boris Johnson. The only emotion he has is hubris. But anyway. Scotland has to get out of this madhouse ASAP. But what if you elected your own madhouse later on then? Because that's the problem we have here. The problem we have here is ultimately not people in England, it's the system that we've got. You know, we change the system, the madhouse goes away. But anyway. You say Wes Streeting looks like a promising leader, plus he has youth on his side. He was promoted specifically because he's marked out as a leader for the future. I have to say I'm not a fan. He comes across very well in interviews. But there's a level of disloyalty about him I don't like. Labour has too many divisive MPs already, and I don't care whether they're an MP who wants a Labour government or not. Divisive MPs I can do without them. I think, like, my attitude is a Labour member can criticise Labour and the Labour leadership as much as they like, but my attitude is a Labour MP or a councillor, but especially an MP, because you make plenty of money as an MP, a Labour MP particularly, you were elected and given that lucrative career because of the Labour Party, and you should back the leader, even if you don't like the leader. Even like, I could criticise Jeremy Corbyn as much as I liked. That's fine. You don't pay me. But I don't agree with MPs criticising the leader. You know, make the best of a bad job, or run as an independent. You know. But anyway, what do I think about John Bercow? Well, the thing with the bullying allegations is you think to yourself, are they politically motivated or not? Because at the end of the day, Priti Patel was found to be guilty of bullying. She kept her job. Bercow found guilty of bullying, and all of a sudden, knives out. But what I would say is, regardless of whether or not it was justified, the fact that these allegations could be true, and certainly officially are true, means it would be a very, very bad idea to try and have John Bercow stand as a candidate for Labour. So I would say no. If he could just stay in the background, that'd be grand from now on, and then quietly get bunged up into the House of Lords when we've got a future government. Maybe. You say Rayner. I have two problems with Rayner. First of all, as I say, there's the lack of subtlety. She's very good in PMQs, but she's not necessarily, and put it this way, she's not a great strategist. Remember, she was, and I don't want to criticise her too much because obviously Starmer could overrule her on certain things, but she was in charge of strategy for the Hartlepool by-election. And as I say, it's not her fault, but at the same time, if she was a brilliant strategist, we would have done better. So I worry about her strategic abilities. And I'll tell you the other thing I'm not keen on. During the leadership contest that Starmer won, if Angela Rayner had stood then, I might have voted for her. But she didn't. And this is fundamentally what I cannot abide. She stood aside, not because she didn't think she'd win, but because she stood aside for Rebecca Long Bailey. Anyone who will stand aside for Rebecca Long Bailey is not leadership material in my view. So, but there it is. Corbyn came within 5,000 votes to become PM in 2007. If only the PLP didn't constantly undermine him. The PLP did not constantly undermine him. And also, that was nothing to do with it either. And he wasn't 5,000 votes. That's absolute nonsense. There were a lot of seats where if we'd have got a few more votes, it could have flipped it. But I will point you to this. Those seats were not targeted by Corbyn. So if you don't, at the end of the day, the reason Jeremy Corbyn never became Prime Minister is because he wouldn't listen to his strategic advice. And you point to 2017, this may have to be the last thing I say. It is, it's getting very snowy here because I cannot control the light in here. And now the natural light is disappearing. But people keep pointing to 2017 and how a good election it was, and you think to yourself, but hang on a minute, 2017 is the election where you claimed he was being undermined. 2019 was the one where he had all of his own people in place, and we lost the biggest. That was the worst general election Labour have ever had, because although they say, oh, in the 1930s there was the worst result, that was when the Labour Party were still growing. They were not in position to win power at that point. They were still evolving. They'd never won power before that point. So it's like, no. At the end of the day, Corbyn wouldn't listen to strategists. That's on him. Entirely on him. But he's gone now. That's it. He's finished. But anyway, is there any chance a completely new political party will reach the political asset? No, the thing is, any new parties that try and push themselves ultimately are just going to take away vote. They're not going to. The Brexit Party was a weird one in that it took votes away from the Conservative Party. I didn't see that coming. But generally speaking, most political parties are formed from well-meaning people. And what does that mean? It's going to take the votes of well-meaning voters from well-meaning parties. We don't need more of that. So Gina Miller, is an absolute hero, but her political party can piss off. But yeah, it looks a bit like my TV reception as well back then when I was at university, trying to move my little aerial around. But anyway, there you go. We'll have to do this. We will be back on Wednesday. As I say, after that, I may open up the memberships, and we'll still fight in. Sorry, I was reading a comment there. We'll still find. We'll find our feet in the next one. It didn't seem too bad. I don't know how many real trolls there were. It didn't seem to be anything horrendous, and it's easily ignored, I think, as well. But we'll leave it there. Thanks very much, everyone. As I say, we'll be back on Wednesday, and then, as I say, either I'll just do this till the end of the month and then open the memberships, or I'll open the memberships if I think that it's ready to go then. He's still sat in Grimsby. Yeah, sorry about that. I was sat in Grimsby for a long time, but there it is. But thanks a lot.